Hello, I'm Anya, yes, and I would like to talk to you about the player-focused approach in the game development cycle. And I'm very, very happy that we can be here together and discuss this topic because I think it's like extremely important to actually validate, the game that we create with our users. So I would like to show you a couple of things. And I'm not going to introduce myself because it was already done, so thank you very much for this. I will add that I'm the mentor and the lecturer at the University of Social Science and Women in Game Dev Ambassador, which is, I think, important to say. Okay, so also I work at PixelAnt Games, and we try to create our own game, in the premium AA segment. And we focus on developing the game in a very rational way with a spark of creativity. And what is important for us is that we want to actually bring fun back into game dev. So if you want to work in a fun way, please join us. Okay, so rational approach mixed with creativity. So from my experience, guys, I don't know how you approach this, but creating games is amazing. It's like fun. It's like challenging, satisfying. We create other worlds for the players, for other people. But also, it might be a little bit difficult and complex and stressful because we deal with uncertainty. We deal with the risk. So maybe if there's a way that we can mitigate this risk and make games in a more rational way, we should try it. So yeah, this is actually a rhetorical question because I'm going to show you how we can approach this. And this talk will be about this. So the gamer experience in game development process and the tools that can help us with making data-informed decisions to create amazing games. So let's start with gamer experience. What is gamer experience? So to discuss gamer experience, we need to start to think about the user. So what you see here is the gamer that is on the edge of the Epic Queen. So Epic Queen is something that is extraordinarily experienced. It's extremely positive. This is something that we didn't expect that might happen, but it's about to happen. So we can see that the guy is extremely focused on what is going on. The eyebrows are raised. And he's enjoying himself, this is apparent. And the picture was taken by Phil Toledano that was trying to capture emotions of the gamers. So he sat at the camera in front of them, asked gamers to play, and he took a couple of pictures. And what is also important, I think, from the case of this presentation, I saw this picture many years ago during the talk of Jane McGonigal during the TED Talks. And she talked about the gaming that can make a better world. And that was the moment for me that I realized that I can bring my education, I'm a psychologist, and match it with the game development. Okay, so gamer experience. If you are thinking about the gamer, there's experience that is happening. And the experience happens in the brain. Everything that we get processing, the emotions that we have, it happens in our brain. So to create the experience that is important for the players, we need to understand the processes that are happening in the brain. And this is absolute simplification of the process for the sake of this lecture. So we have perception. So we get input, there's data, like noise or like some kind of visuals, some kind of information that we're receiving. Then we process it in our brain, and then there is learning effect. So there's memory is changing. And obviously, it happens in a different way for different people. And what can impact the whole process is the attention that we have, the attention that is usually limited. There are emotions that we feel, and the motivation that drives us. And when you perceive something, we analyze it through the emotions, motivation, attention, and then there's change in your brain. You learn something. And obviously, we would like players to learn everything that we can, that we want to show them and memorize everything, but it rarely happens. So it's important to understand what can affect the way people perceive our games. you can imagine the situation when you are like, driving a car, you're trying to fit into a very narrow parking slot, you are talking to someone next to you, and you're also trying to type. You shouldn't, but let's say that you're trying to type. So it's very possible that you will have problem with realizing like your task. So, for instance, if you are giving too many stuff to our players, to our gamers, to fulfill, it's very possible that they will fail. Okay. So now about the game development process. I would like to show you like 4 phases. I know that there are different approaches, but let's focus on 4 phases for the sake of this lecture. There's planning phase where we make decision what kind of game do we want to make. Then there's pre-production phase when we create core mechanics, concept arts, like game design documentation, hopefully. Then there's production when magic happens. We put everything together. A vertical slice, horizontal slice, alpha, beta, and then we go to launch, and we release the game, and yeah, we expect the game to be awesome, and like we want the game to be received as something great, and assuming that we work in a very complex environment, it's fairly possible that you guys work, and me as well, in the iteration model. So we create some idea, then we create prototype, we validate it, hopefully with the playtests, then we evaluate the findings, and we make a decision what we are going to implement or what we are going to not implement, and like maybe change or just get rid of. And since we want all of us, I think, want to create games that are amazing and great for the players, we ask ourselves questions during the whole production process. And the questions, I hope that you ask yourself these questions because these are important questions for the players. So, do players understand the game rules and core mechanics? Can they learn mechanics effectively? Are the game controls and UI comfortable to use? And if players can do what they intend to do, then if they experience emotions that we want them to experience, is the pace, balance, and challenge perceived as planned? And if the game motivating the players to do what we want them to do. And if we have all of these elements, we create game experience. And the game experience can be good or bad, depending on the answers. So if the experience is amazing, people will feel connected to the game characters, they will feel that have impact on the game, that they can achieve something meaningful, and that they feel competent by playing the game. And there's like something like the game flow, which means that you are getting transported to another time, another place. So you are totally immersed in the game. So we are asking these questions during the game development process. And I would like to show you some tools that we can use to answer these questions. So where we are thinking about the planning, so discovery phase, we have, we are asking about, our core users, our core audience. We are asking ourselves about the other games that are there on the market that maybe we can compete with. We are asking about budget, what kind of game you are going to create, like what time. So some of these tools that I'm going to show you now can help with answering these questions. And maybe you will notice that some of these elements are highlighted. It means that I'm going to talk about them more in the next couple of minutes. So, audience definition and competitors analysis. This is crucial elements for understanding what kind of game we want to create. Then during the pre-production, we create a bunch of core mechanics, like playable prototypes, concept arts, maybe stories is already there, ready for the placing. It's not implemented yet, but the story is there. And what we can do, we can gather the feedback from the players during the pre-production phase, especially if there's something that is crucial for your game, like this is the pillar of your game, for example, parkour, or I don't know, like you are creating the story-driven game. So it's nice to actually validate it at the very beginning before you decide to put it to the production. Because if you put something that's not good enough into the production, it might be too late to change it later on. Okay, so the production, we gather everything that we created in the pre-production and we, make magic happen. So we create another world, we create experience, and when we have actually like some part of the game, like the chunk of the game or like the whole game, it's nice to validate it with the players if they experience what we want them to experience. So motivations, emotions, and like the drive to actually play the game, if they are having fun while playing the game. And then lunch. There's also pre-lunch. So usually during the pre-lunch, you start with a very intensive communication from the marketing team. So it's really nice to validate if the expectations of the players match what we actually create, because if there's a difference, players might be disappointed, obviously. And what is important here is the telemetry data. So when we actually launch the game, we release the game, there are a lot of people that are going to play it. It's nice to understand how they move through our game, like where they die, what kind of skills they choose, like when they want to stop playing the game. So telemetry data is pretty crucial, and it's actually eyes for our designers to make decisions. Okay, so UX tools in practice. And before we start doing so, I've been talking a little bit, so now your turn. I would like to ask you a couple of questions. So let's start with the simple one. Are you guys playing games? If you do play games, please raise your hand. Yay, okay, cool. So female characters. Who is the female here? Okay, no, it's not so bad. I'm glad. Awesome. Okay, so now there are going to be more difficult questions. So what is important for you while you are playing a game? If it's important for you, please raise your hand. Working towards a common goal with other players. Yes, it's important for me, for instance. Okay, cool. Playing the game at the highest difficulty level. Okay. Characters with interesting backstories and personalities. All right, nice. Gameplay that requires a lot of thinking and planning. Okay. Completing as many as possible missions and achievements in a game. Okay. Dominating other players. Gameplay with constant action and excitement. Okay. Right. So that was, like short introduction to the audience, because we are different. You notice that we have different answers, and it means that like players expect other stuff, sometimes than we do. So it's important to understand how are they motivated to do things, like who are they, what they like, what kind of games do they play. So we can identify our player segments and target them with specific features and messaging. So what you see here is, the player profile that is created by Quantic Foundry, and I recommend it because this is the place where you can get data from over 1 million players, which is pretty rare, and they are pretty accurate. So you can see here that, for example, like this is the lady here. So like she's female, like most of the audience female, age like almost 40. So and she mostly like play casual games and core, and prefer like is a mid-core gamer, and you can see the frequency of how often she plays the game during the week. So we can see all of this information and make decisions based on that, if this audience is our core audience or not. And when we think about this, it's also important to add here information about, like the other games that this specific audience plays. And also, what kind of games they will not play at all. So this information can help us with identifying what kind of core mechanics we want to deliver in our game, how are we going to create the marketing communication to our players. And when we are thinking about the audience, you can define, like for one game, I would say up to 3 profiles, like the core personas. If you want to go further, it's very difficult to match, like everyone motivations. So please be careful about this, especially if you have audiences from that are not similar. So if you go for casual gamers and then you want to add mechanics with very difficult mechanics that require a lot of learning, it might be not a good idea. Okay, now a couple of numbers from VG Insights, because I like working with numbers. VG Insights is like a platform that provides information from Steam. They gather data and then they create reports. And this is quite interesting, I think. So only 2021, there were 11,000 games released. 27% of these games sold under 100 copies, which is pretty daunting, I think. Only about 8% of the games that were released during this year sold over 10,000 copies. And only 10% of Steam developers have ever made more than $100,000 in gross revenue. Okay, so this is pretty interesting, because it shows that the market is pretty wide. So there's a lot of other games that are there that we compete with. And yeah, so we should do everything to make our game better, than other games. So how can you do this? Because you can use data as understand your competition, but you can also get inspired by it. So this is the tool that we prepared in-house by our awesome developers, and I just wanted to show a couple of screens. So here is there are results from the filter that I put here. So these are games that were released between 2017 and 2022. Within the brackets of the price between $9 and $30, and that are owned by at least 50,000 people. So this is it. And we gathered data, our whole database contains of 50,000 games, so it's pretty great. So what you can see here, and this is based on the tags from Steam, if you are familiar with them. What you can see here is that single-player games are the most popular, and they actually sell pretty well. Then there's action, adventure, strategy. So do you see what kind of games are not so great? They don't sell pretty cool? Who knows? Hardcore. Okay, what else? Hardcore? Maybe puzzle? Yeah, because you can see that they don't sell well. So usually, when you prepare the charts, the cold color means that it sucks, and then the warmer gets better. So we can use this information, and when we make decisions about the core mechanics or the theme or genre that we want to develop, and try to be inspired by it. So if we go further, let's say that we want to see only games within the previous selection that have sci-fi as a tag. If I'm talking too fast about this and you have questions, please ask me, because it might be a little bit complicated. But if we decide to analyze only sci-fi tags, we can see what other tags are complementary to the sci-fi. Yeah. So for instance, if we look at the sci-fi, there's adventure tag, which is pretty cool. Action, single player, yes. Multiplayer. And again, which one of them is not so great? Exactly. So, if we see this information, we can make decisions. What kind of theme we want to add, what kind of mechanics we want to add. So, thanks to that, we create games in an more rational way. And now I would like to talk about the usability playtests. And it's going to be fun, I think. So this is the important moment.
Is it open yet?
This is the footage from Dying Light, by the way. And I would like to show you this footage from the specific moment. So 1 second. Okay. Can we make it a little bit quieter? Okay, thank you. So guys, I would like to talk to you about the usability playtest. I hope that you can focus on me and also like watching video. And this is the footage from YouTube about climbing the highest building. And when we think about the usability playtests, we want to use them for specific mechanics or specific like, prototype, like specific part of the game. And we give players specific tasks to achieve. So for instance, in this case, the guy would receive task to climb the highest possible building. And what we can observe here is if he manages to do this, how many tries he needs to do this, how much time he needs to actually achieve the result, what kind of mechanics are they used. Like, we can see the stamina management, we can see, like if he manages the infection, like what kind of platforms does he use, like what is he doing here. So this is mostly the observation of the situation. And we can see that he's using grappling hook a lot, and he manages the stamina pretty well. But this is actually like extremely good player. So it's very possible that if I gave you this task right now, you wouldn't be able to do this, like easily. Or maybe you would. I sorry. So this is part of the usability playtest. We can observe, we can make decisions. So maybe the stamina management is not good enough, and we need to tweak it or we need to change it. When we make decision that this specific setup is good enough, then we can multiply it throughout the game. But if parkour is something that is crucial for your game, it's actually pretty wise to test it earlier. So basically, when we can use it for the core mechanics, for the specific quests, for UI controls, this is very, very specific task that we give to the player to complete. Okay, so now the experience playtests. This is something we should do during the production. So when we decide that the parkour elements are good enough, we can then multiply them in the production throughout the game. And, oops. So guys, you can see, like, we use the same mechanics that we used before, but there's whole experience. So the guy is moving, there's like combats, he's going to achieve something, uses different mechanics, like there's like whole emotions, pacing, he's running and try to do something. And there's going to be, yes, exactly, yeah, level up. So, this is the experience. So this is the experience. We try to validate if there are emotions that we want to achieve, if the player is motivated to play the game, if they are going to be motivated throughout a couple of hours. Because it's cool to play the game for 30 minutes, but they will be able to play the game for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. Like at what point they will be bored with the game. Are there any moments during the gameplay that they would like to stop playing the game? So this is all about the experience, and we can measure it, and we can make decisions. So for instance, we can make decision that this move was so awesome that we want to multiply it in different areas. But maybe if players are getting bored with this or frustrated, we can just remove it entirely from the game. Okay, and telemetry data. So this is something that we can, of course, use during the production or like pre-production in a simplified way. But it's extremely crucial to have telemetry data when we launch the game. If we don't do this, we lose a lot of opportunity to balance our game, to tweak our game, and to actually understand how players are interacting with it. So there are a couple of metrics that we can gather. There's gameplay metrics. So it's all about, like the balancing, like, what kind of skills they pick, where they die. There's engagement and rotation. So how long do they play the game, like if they are returning to the game. Monetization, so it's like, financial stuff, if the game is selling well or not. Social aspects, so, if they chat to each other, if they grouped together to do some content. And technical metrics, it's pretty cool for QA, but not only. So, if there are any crashes, like loading time, optimization, usage of, like specific platforms. So telemetry data gives you information about how players play the game in the larger scale. So how to fit it into the roadmap? Not easily. Yeah. Because why? It's costly, it costs money, it's time consuming, and it takes resources. But can we afford to not do this? This is the question we need to ask ourselves. So I try to show you here how I would try to build the process for the playtests. So we can start with the pre-production phase, and playtests should happen. They don't have to be like extremely often, but we should absolutely test core mechanics when they are ready. Then, during the production phase, we want to have playthroughs as often as possible because we tweak our game, we change it constantly. So we want to get feedback from the players as often as possible. And then during the launch, of course, telemetry data. And one more thing, you remember I was asking you questions about, like what kind of mechanics are important for you, and if you're a gamer. So are you the game developer? Okay. So guys, this is very important. It's awesome to playtest your own feature, your own game. You should do this absolutely, but it doesn't count as external playtests from actually your audience, because you are not. You are not unbiased. You just play your game. You know it. Like you love it. You have emotions, or you hate it. But like there are emotions. So it means that you will not give the honest, unbiased feedback. Yeah, and it means that like the playtest organization might be pretty complex, but if you actually set the process correctly, it means that you can run the playtest constantly and give feedback to the developers, to your stakeholders on a daily basis. So my suggestion is here, like, start planning playtesting. Like these are the milestones, let's say. Like this is very like crude, but these are the milestones. So you start planning the playtests like in the middle of the milestone, because you actually know what's going to be delivered at the end of the milestone. Then you conduct the playtests, then you have results. And after analyzing the results, you can decide what kind of feedback you are going to incorporate into the backlog, and then you can run another playtest. So also what is very, very important here is that you need to stabilize the build that you are going to playtest. You cannot use the build that is actually in the development. Because players, external players, need to receive build that is stabilized, without bugs. It should be just game as they would play. And what is also important, it takes time. Yeah. So it can happen in like 5 days. You need to assume that the whole process will take a couple of weeks or 2 weeks, but still, you need to accommodate it into the whole process. So also when you are thinking about the telemetry data, it won't happen throughout the night, like to create like the right events into the game. Like you need to start doing this like here. somewhere, like, as soon as possible and start testing it as soon as possible. So again, it will cost money, and it will take time and resources, but it's totally worth it. I think I was very fast. Was I? 30, okay. Cool. So, guys, takeaways. Gamer experience is crucial in game development process because it gives us tools that can help us with making data-informed decisions to create amazing games. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anya, for your super presentations. Now it's time for questions, so let's start.
Very nice. Was nice to see that. I have a question. Like, there are many different methods that can be applied in like user testing. Have you ever used also diary study during the whole development process?
I haven't. For me it's difficult to do this because we usually play this game that are in the middle of the production process. So it would mean that we have to give the game to the player to just play at home. So this is something that is difficult to approach.
So in that case, rather quantitative, because I see you like to work with data, so you rather go with quantitative or qualitative?
This is also very important, and we can talk about the actual playtesting, how to construct them during the other talk, and I'm happy to discuss it with you. But we focus on the feedback. When we create the playtests, we have lots of questions about how they perceive the pacing, about fun, like emotions. So for instance, if you want to playtest the story, emotions are the most important part of it. The motivations that you can feel there. If there is like connection between the characters, and so yeah, this is extremely important. I was just showing data because usually for producers it's easy to understand.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, great talk.
Thank you.
I really like your approach for that. I have a question about the prototyping. Do you test your prototypes without implementation in engine? Like maybe some low fidelity prototypes in Figma or other tools?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Although, but it depends, So if you want to playtest, for example, UI elements, you can play it this way. Or if you want to understand, for instance, I don't know, icons, it's also possible. If you want to playtest story, it doesn't have to be implemented into the engine. You have a lot of tools that can give you the ability to actually run the game with the players, run the story with the players. But when it comes to Figma testing and the prototypes that are not very interactive, it might be difficult, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the talk. It was great. I have a question regarding to Quantic Foundry, because you told that Quantic Foundry you find it very reliable or good data. How do you know? Do you in some way did you validate the data about these profiles to some life situations? I mean, how do you know is it reliable and is it useful?
So first of all, they show the methodology, and it's pretty valid. I just validated myself, if I understand it, if I resonate with this. And the second thing is that when we were thinking about the games that we want to create, we were seeing the competition that is important for us, and we asked them to provide profiles for the specific games. For instance, I don't know, like Dota, I cannot tell you guys which exact games, but let's say Dota. So you can see the exact profiles of people that play the specific game, and it matches. It's something that you can understand that it actually happens.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously, you have to pay for this data.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for the talk. I got a question. Can we consider gameplay by influencers as a valid playtest?
Not really.
Because they are biased, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
well, there are a couple of reasons why not. So, first of all, they are professionals. You know, they play the game as professionals, so they have a different approach to it. And yet they play the game because they earn money on it. So, you know, it's nice to observe it, and it's nice actually to see what influencers have the most views, you know, like what people comment underneath, because this is our audience, but our influencer is not the audience. Yeah?
Yeah, it makes
Do you
sense.
agree with me?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool.
it. It can be a part of the audience, but yeah, mostly they are just the users that pipeline the audience to the audience and get the gameplay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, please, we'll go there.
Okay, thanks for the talk. I wanted to ask, how do you distribute this feedback from the playtest and all the data you gather to the developers?
Yeah.
Are they involved with the process somehow, or you create reports for them? How involved are they?
So obviously developers should know that we are going to do some kind of playtest, because then they can prepare for this. They can also ask questions, not direct questions that we are going to then ask players, but you know, the stuff that are interesting for them. I wouldn't recommend to have developers during the playtest, especially in the room. Like, don't do this, because they're going to influence the feedback. They can observe it. You know, like if you have the room that is properly prepared for this, with you know, the mirror and stuff, you can, you know, ask them to join you. But at the end, what is the most efficient way is to create the report that is, you know, very easy to read. Then to give them short videos of specific elements. So for instance, if we are thinking about the parkour and we decide, okay, stamina is not so great. And I'm very certain that developers will not have time to watch all of the, you know, recording. But we as researchers, we should do this, you know, at least, you know, the most important parts. So we can prepare the short footages from the specific elements, you know, and show them. So, okay, see, like, what's happening here? The guy, like, couldn't, like, manage the stamina, you know, maybe we should fix it. And also what is important is to actually, like, present the report at the end, you know, like, when you finish the playtest, just, you know, go to the developers, talk to them.
Okay, thank you.
This is a little bit of a follow-up question to that, for the previous one. Have you ever encountered, like, the culture clash, let's say, with the tool and with the team? Let's say you have a like an indie project, and people feel, let's say, that it's more like a corporate tool, and the soul of the game is like taken. It's taking from the soul of the game, and they're losing the control of the project and of their work. How do you tackle those problems?
Well, I encounter clashes, of course, and you know, because it's very difficult to introduce this process to the company that is already established. But what we are mentioning is actually like indie games, and you know, like very close connection, like emotional connection to the stuff that you are creating. And what is important here, that this is not data-driven. You know, this is data-informed. So you can get inspiration from it. You know, so this is actually like amazing and helpful tool for the designers, because they can get answers for their questions. So it shouldn't be, I think, something that would endanger the creative process. This is something that should support it, because you know faster what your players, what your gamers think about this stuff. And of course, this is very important how you present, you know, the whole playtesting concept. Because if you say to developers, you know, this is the validation moment, you know, you have to like give something that is super perfect, like, you know, ideal. No, this is not it. You know, we are thinking about the iterations. So right now we are getting feedback about something, we can like tweak it, and then we are going to do another playtest. So this is the tool that should be helpful for them, not, you know, the danger.
Thanks again for the talk. How you define the most important data that you want to collect in case if you have a technology bottleneck? I don't know, for example, a limited number of actions that you can collect from the player.
So this is all about the priorities, obviously. You're asking about the priorities. So, for instance, if we playtest the parkour, that would be the easiest element. We need to decide what elements, what function of the parkour are crucial for us. So we're not going to observe everything, Like I don't know if you saw guys that the guy was actually like looting stuff from the chest. It wasn't important for us at all. What was important for us was, stamina, what kind of tools they use, like what kind of skills they use, like what kind of, platforms. So you can make decisions. And usually what should happen is during the preparation time, when you decide about the goals of the playtest, you need to understand what kind of data you are going to gather. So then people can actually work with the feedback. Yeah, so you don't have to gather all of the information. It's not possible, especially at the end of the production when the game is like humongous, and the report can have 2,000 pages. Sometimes it happens, but for different teams, different information is important. And also, what is advisable is that you don't take all of this information very directly. You need to understand what is crucial at this specific moment. And it's valid to actually discuss it within the team, what kind of feedback we are going to incorporate and what kind of feedback we are not going to incorporate. Because, for instance, it's not important right now. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Okay, cool.
Any more questions? Okay.
Thanks for the talk. It was very interesting. Have you got any special approach regarding testing prototypes? For example, from my view, players tend to focus too much on an unfinished graphic or some. Yes. Okay. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is an issue. So it's very important that the game that we present the players is finished to the point that it's actually playable. So if there are important bugs that will not allow players to continue the game, we shouldn't playtest it. We should abort the playtest and move it to another moment. But what we are mentioning is that people need to understand that this is prototype. So graphic is not important right now. Maybe some kind of audio elements is not important right now. So you can set the background for the players to understand. Okay, we are going to focus on the combat. So if we are playtesting combat, you can give them tasks to kill enemies. And they will not focus on the graphics then. Yeah.
Any more questions? Here, Alexei.
I want to ask about tools related with the IE right now. If you are using anything on any stage of your process?
No.
Not really.
AI? No.
Okay.
Although we can discuss it further because maybe you have some ideas.
I'm just using it for maybe inspiration. I'm looking some features in other games that I don't know, but they have like a good mechanics.
Okay.
And sometimes I'm just trying to see how I can summarize some research data. Sometimes I'm just gathering data from opinions from Steam and just checking what kind of patterns I use.
Okay, you mean this way. Yeah, you are just talking about analyzing data, like big data in a constructive way.
Because this is really time consuming, and from my perspective, I was just not wasting this much time on it. I'm just sometimes I'm just checking how they are approaching my solutions, but I was just wondering if you are using it.
For instance, you're mentioning the reviews from Steam. So what you can do, like if you're interested in specific game, you can gather all of the comments like in one place, and then you can run it through, like these tools are actually free. You can run it through the most common words that were showed in this specific field. So if you are talking about, I don't know, World of Warcraft, there are going to be specific elements like, I don't know, like Balasik or Druid or something. So yeah, if you're talking about this from this perspective, yeah.
So we have time for one more question, if there is. Okay, there's one question.
I have a follow-up question to the visuals. When do you apply the effects to the game, like visual effects, particles, sound effects, or overlays, since they are also like color coding to navigate the player through the experience? So do you apply it to the
prototype
to the tests?
Yes. So, but it depends, of course. It depends of the goal of the playtest. But if you want to again validate the combat, and it's important for the player to understand, the feedback that is happening, you can, of course, add, the audio elements or visual elements, so the player understands. It can be crude, like it doesn't have to be perfect, but you need to have the signal that something is happening. So yeah, you can add it like at the prototype phase. We actually do this, so yeah.
So right now we know that Anya does great presentations, and she also handles questions very well. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Anya, for your time. Thank you very much for questions.